Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. The desert didn't whisper. It cackled. Every gust of wind was like the wheeze of some ancient lizard god who just heard the funniest joke in the galaxy. Her, Zakara of the Ninth Blood, stumbling half-dead across a cursed sandpit on a nowhere planet. Her boots dragged through rust-colored grit, the edges of her cloak torn by heat vortices that kept trying to turn her into cosmic jerky. Somewhere above, twin suns baked the air until it shimmered like bad dreams. Her body, once worshipped and feared in equal measure, now complained with every step. Bones aching, fangs dull, mouth parched beyond reason. If this was exile, it was a petty one, and her people were excellent at petty. Her breath rattled in her throat as she crested a dune, squinting at the endless horizon that looked suspiciously like the last 12 horizons. Sand, more sand, a rock shaped like a defiant middle finger. Charming. She hissed and collapsed to one knee, fingers clawing into the scorching dust, half hoping it would swallow her and be done with it. The desert might have been trying. It was hard to tell. Her mind was a swirl of faded memories, the sharp metallic taste of battle, the thrum of star engines beneath her flagship, the low voice of her brother as he whispered betrayal like a bedtime story. All gone now, replaced by the sound of sizzling skin and the faintest buzz in her ears. No, wait, that wasn't in her head. A footstep, then another, and then a voice bright as an idiot comet. Whoa, you are definitely not a mirage. She tilted her head slowly, like a rusted turret. A man, human, she noted with a tired pang of disappointment, stood there wearing a sunburn, a utility vest that had lost a fight with gravity, and an expression that said he had no idea how close he was to being her next unfortunate meal. "You okay?" he asked, crouching as if trying to show sympathy while his body screamed, "I am terrified." "You look crispy and scary, like a very angry toaster." She tried to answer, but her throat had given up hours ago. He reached for his belt, fumbling with something. She prepared to bite him out of principle if he pulled a weapon. Instead, he yanked out a canteen and shook it. Empty. He looked from it to her with an apologetic wince. "Yeah, about that. I might have drunk it all trying to sing karaoke in the dunes last night. There was an echo. I regret nothing." Her vision swam. She swayed. Her limbs refused to obey. She thought about hissing, maybe even a dramatic death glare. All she managed was a dry wheeze. "Okay," he said, scrambling. "Hold on. Wait, I read something once about blood vampires. No, wait, space vampires. You guys like blood, right? Not like in a weird way. Well, I mean, it's all weird, but forget it." He pulled out a small utility knife, flicked the blade open, and without ceremony sliced across his palm. The scent hit her like a solar flare. Rich. Alive. Not just blood. Life. Pure and vibrating, dancing with humor and hormones and some unfortunate fast food choices. He offered his bleeding hand like it was a handshake. "Go on, I won't tell anyone. Cross-species confidentiality." For a moment she hesitated. Then instinct seized her, and she latched onto his wrist, her fangs piercing skin like silk. He yelped. "Okay, yep, that's definitely happening. That's my blood. Please don't drain me completely. I have an unpaid parking ticket and a cat somewhere." His voice became background noise. Her body lit up from the inside, the heat vanishing, strength returning in electric pulses. Muscles coiled, bones hummed. The desert fell away, replaced by a sudden, impossible bloom of power. When she let go, she was already stronger than she'd been in days. The man wobbled and sat down, blinking at her like she was either a goddess or a very elegant hallucination. She stood over him, eyes gleaming. He grinned up at her. "Hi, I'm Trent. You're welcome. Please don't eat me." She narrowed her eyes. Then with infinite dignity, she said the first words her throat allowed. "Trent, if you speak again without being asked, I will bury you headfirst in sand and summon every biting insect in this cursed desert to use your ears as a hive." He nodded. "Cool, cool, cool, cool. Just glad we're bonding." The wind had picked up since she fed. It whipped around them in short, irritated bursts, as if the desert itself resented her for not dying on schedule. Skara walked now, not stumbled. Her movements were still slow, but each step no longer screamed of defeat. Behind her, Trent trailed like a very loud, very talkative shadow. "I'm just saying," he said, hopping over a suspiciously flat rock. "If you had drained me, you'd be stuck alone out here. And alone is boring. Not that I'm not useful. I mean, I have a multi-tool, a half-functioning nav beacon, and an above-average sense of direction." Statistically, she didn't answer. "Also," he added cheerfully, "I sing when I get nervous. Just so you know, in case you thought the desert was haunted or something." He began humming what sounded like a tragic ballad from an older sitcom. Zakara blinked once, slowly. It was a mercy she hadn't fed long enough to gain a full psychic bond. Otherwise, she might have been forced to experience his thoughts in real time, which, judging by his singing, were a danger to galactic sanity. "You are walking too close," she said finally. "Oh, right, personal space. Got it." He took 3 exaggerated sidesteps and promptly fell into a shallow pit. There was a muffled curse, followed by the sound of sand being spit out. "I meant emotionally close." There was a pause, then a laugh that echoed off the dunes like a drunk drone's mating call. "Now you're joking. I like you better this way." "I was not too late," he said, climbing out of the pit with one boot missing. "I'm choosing to believe that was a joke. Helps me cope with the blood loss and emotional trauma." She didn't roll her eyes. Not because she didn't want to, but because she physically couldn't. Too dry. Still rehydrating. They walked for hours. Or maybe it was 1 hour that just repeated itself on a loop, slightly more disappointing each time. The suns dipped behind a haze of burnt orange clouds. In the distance, broken silhouettes jutted from the sand. Scrap metal, perhaps a ruined convoy or a lost research outpost. Trent brightened. "Civilization! Or at least something man-made I can poke at irresponsibly." "Stay here." He didn't. They approached the wreckage together. It was a downed supply crawler, half buried in sand, its hull scorched and torn. The insignia had faded, but Zakara recognized the shape. Human Coalition transport, mid-tier, likely scavenged at least twice. Trent tapped the side of it. "Knock, knock. Any murderous robots inside?" The door creaked. Something inside creaked louder. She moved faster than thought, dragging him back by the collar just as a skeletal arm thrust through the broken hatch, claws clacking. "Aha!" he said, wheezing. "See? That's exactly why I bring you along. You're like a really attractive danger sensor." The arm scrabbled in the air for a moment, then retreated. A rusted drone dragged itself out behind it, sparking and muttering static. Its eyes flickered erratically. "Life. Scan. Blood. Anomaly," it hissed. Trent raised a finger. "Quick question. Is this the kind that explodes when it finishes a sentence, or the kind that gives unwanted vaccinations?" Zakara stepped forward, claws extended. The drone twitched, scanned her, and then chirped. "Threat. Excessive. Retreating." It turned and promptly walked into a wall, fell over, and short-circuited with a fizz. Trent looked at her. "Do you intimidate all electronics like that?" "Only the fragile ones." "Well, congratulations. You just scared a toaster into having a breakdown." She ignored him and salvaged a cracked energy cell from the wreckage. It pulsed faintly, barely functional, but it might help locate her emergency beacon, if it hadn't been fried in her crash. As they settled into a hollow behind the wreck to rest, Trent unpacked what looked like a snack bar and eyed her. "Do you eat normal food, or do you just sniff it and judge me?" She raised one brow. He offered half anyway. "Here, just in case your stomach gets bored of gourmet human blood." She took it, slowly. It tasted like sadness and cardboard. "I'm keeping your blood on the menu," she muttered. Trent grinned and leaned back against a rock. "Good. Means I'm useful. Just let me know if you want a refill. I've got plenty of sarcasm left in the veins." She didn't smile, but she didn't threaten him either, and Trent took that as progress. Morning arrived rudely, as it usually did on desert planets with too many suns and not enough manners. Trent groaned as he stretched out from beneath the lopsided piece of hull they'd used as a makeshift roof. Sand had managed to infiltrate every possible crevice of his clothes, equipment, and dignity. He blinked blearily at the harsh light and muttered, I miss ceilings and showers and, yep, definitely socks. Zakara was already awake. Not that she'd slept. She didn't seem the type. She sat with her back to him, scanning the small, flickering interface she'd hacked together from salvaged crawler parts. Trent didn't understand much of what she was doing, but he recognized the universal look of someone judging a piece of tech with disdain. He shuffled over. So, are we calling for help, ordering a pizza, or launching an orbital laser? Because I'm good with two of those options. She didn't look up. The distress beacon is corrupted. Someone tampered with it before I crashed. Intentionally. Okay, not pizza then, he said, sitting beside her with a dramatic sigh. So, sabotage? Like evil council-level sabotage? Or jealous ex who doesn't understand? Boundary sabotage. Her fingers tightened on the interface. Council. They wanted to be sure I wouldn't return. That's harsh, even by vampire bureaucracy standards. He paused. Do you guys even have bureaucracy? Or do you just solve problems with duels and dramatic speeches? Both, she said flatly. Trent nodded. Efficient. A moment passed in silence, broken only by the whirring of sand skimmers far in the distance. Too far to see, but close enough for Zakara to stiffen. We're being tracked, she murmured. Poorly. Poorly is my favorite kind of tracked, he said brightly. Very on brand for our luck lately. She powered down the interface, tucked it into her cloak, and stood. We move. Now. They packed quickly. Or rather, she packed efficiently while Trent attempted to shove things into a bag that clearly resented its own existence. As they moved away from the wreckage, the skimmers grew louder, still distant, but closing in. Trent glanced back nervously. So, should we leave a surprise for our tail? Something explosive? I have half a protein bar and a very unhealthy imagination. No, she said. We'll let them think they're succeeding. Ah, psychological warfare. My specialty. I once convinced a customs drone I was a medical llama. She didn't respond, but her stride quickened. Hours passed. The sun didn't seem to understand the concept of mercy. Trent mumbled to himself, sang a few verses of an Earth sea shanty, rewritten to feature desert scorpions and mildly judgmental cacti, and eventually stumbled into something solid. It was a stone pillar, ancient, etched with symbols not even Zakara recognized. Well, this isn't ominous, Trent said. Definitely not haunted. Nope. Zakara circled the pillar. It's not native to this region. I mean, neither am I, he offered. But you don't see me summoning ancient sand spirits. She ran her hand across the engravings. The symbols flickered faintly. Reactive tech, buried under centuries of sun and spite. Trent leaned in. Do you think it's like a password door? Should I try saying friend in Elvish? She ignored him, placed her palm to the stone, and whispered a word not meant for human ears. The ground rumbled. A small hatch opened beside the pillar with a hiss of dust and time. Oh, good, Trent said. Definitely not haunted. They descended into a dark chamber lit by bioluminescent roots. It smelled faintly of minerals, ozone, and old secrets. Zakara exhaled slowly. This is one of the old vaults. My people used them during the wars. Cool, Trent said, peering around. Any chance there's air conditioning and some towels in here? She found a control node and powered it up. A hologram shimmered into being, an old message flickering. A face appeared, regal, sharp, and far too familiar. Zakara's voice was suddenly low. My brother, Trent squinted. So, we're watching alien family drama now? Because I gotta say, this beats every soap opera I've ever seen. The message began to play, and in it were answers she didn't want, and warnings they might not survive. But Trent was already rummaging for snacks. Hey, if we die in here, at least it's in a cool, glowing cave. That's gotta be worth something. She closed her eyes. This human, this absurd, infuriating, unbreakably ridiculous human. Against all logic, she was starting to feel safer with him than she ever had in her own palace. The hologram sputtered like it had stage fright, flickering through static before stabilizing. Zakara stood frozen, her posture tense but too proud to call it what it was, shocked. Trent, meanwhile, had somehow found a patch of moss that was either bioluminescent or mildly radioactive, and was poking it with a stick he'd named Kevin. The figure on the projection was tall, clad in ceremonial armor, etched with bloodlines and war honors that screamed, "I am both important and emotionally unavailable." His voice filled the chamber with imperial smoothness. "To my sister Zakara, if you are hearing this, then the council has succeeded in removing you, which, let's be honest, was always their plan. You were too powerful, too beloved. Also, you told High Regent Talek his robe made him look like a haunted curtain." Zakara made a faint sound. It might have been a snort. Trent looked up from his moss battle. "Wait, did he really say that? Because if so, I already like your brother better than I was emotionally prepared for." The message continued. "They knew you wouldn't die easily, so they'll make sure you can't return. The crash, the beacon, none of it is coincidence. But if you found this place, it means you're not finished. And if you're not finished, then there's still hope." The image faltered again. "Find the second vault. It contains what they fear most, your legacy, and maybe a little backup." He paused, looked off to the side, then added in a lower voice, "And sister, try not to eat anyone you don't have to. It's a PR problem." The projection blinked out. Silence. Then Trent clapped once. 10 out of 10. Would binge watch that entire drama series. Zakara turned slowly. "You find humor in everything." "Absolutely. It's either that or cry into my emergency socks. And I already lost one of those to a sand crab named Marvin." She walked past him toward the exit hatch. "We leave at once." "You mean now? Or like in an hour after you glare at a wall for a bit and I take a nap?" She didn't answer. She rarely did when he asked things with more optimism than sense. They resurfaced into blistering light. But the vault had marked something in her. It wasn't just the message. It was the memory of what she'd once believed in. Her people, her future, her stupidly dramatic brother who always left cryptic advice and then vanished for a dramatic effect. Trent trudged behind her, humming again. "So, we're hunting for vault number 2, which presumably holds royal vampire secrets, ancient powers, and possibly snacks?" "There will be no snacks," she muttered. "You can't prove that until we open it." They climbed another dune and paused. In the distance, several black dots shimmered just above the horizon. Skimmers. 3, maybe 4. Trent said. "Those look less like friendly delivery drivers and more like angry people with guns and parental issues." Zakara squinted. "Assassins. Or bounty hunters." "Same thing," Trent said. "Only difference is bounty hunters sometimes smile when they stab you." She knelt, dug quickly through her satchel, and retrieved a tiny spherical device with blinking runes. "Emergency transport beacon," she said. "Short range. One use." "Sweet! Wait! Short range?" Before he could finish questioning that, she pressed it into the sand. It blinked once, twice, then activated with a pop that smelled like burnt copper and regret. A shimmer enveloped them. The desert snapped away, replaced by a deep underground tunnel that smelled of old circuits and someone's poorly ventilated ambition. Trent blinked. "Okay, that was nauseating, but also very cool. Would ride again. Maybe with seatbelts next time." She pressed a hand to the wall. Ancient text stirred in the dark. Symbols lit the tunnel ahead, pulsing gently. Trent squinted. "That one looks like a cat. That one might be a fish. That one definitely looks like a guy who owes you money." "It's a map," she said. "To the second vault." He stepped beside her, shoulder brushing hers. "Guess we're not dying today after all." "Today," she repeated. He grinned. "I'm taking that as optimism." She didn't stop him. She also didn't point out the third symbol, the one flickering just out of sync with the others, the one that meant trap. Let him keep his humor. She might need it soon. The tunnel did not collapse immediately, which Trent considered a win. It also didn't smell like doom, which was bonus points. Instead, it hummed, low, metallic, and oddly rhythmic, like a machine trying to remember a lullaby it once heard in a war zone. The light from the wall runes pulsed ahead of them in patterns that Zakara clearly understood, and Trent was absolutely pretending to. He squinted at the nearest symbol. Okay, so let me guess. That one means danger, that one says this way to snacks, and that one's an interstellar warning about outdated interior design. Zakara didn't slow her pace. That one indicates magnetic compression fields. That one marks an ancient blood rite, and that one is a kill trigger for the ceiling. He took a quick, careful step away from the last one. See? I was close. The deeper they walked, the more the air shifted. It wasn't pressure. It was memory. The kind of air that had heard oaths, screams, and possibly a lot of passive-aggressive speeches from people wearing too many medals. Trent adjusted the strap on his pack. So, hypothetically, if we do find this second vault and unlock some royal vampire superpower, do I get a cape? No. Okay. But what about, like, a badge? Something shiny. I've always wanted to be mildly intimidating at interstellar customs. Zakara paused suddenly, her head tilted. Trent froze. Oh, that's not a fun tilt. That's the I sense death kind of tilt, isn't it? There was a vibration in the wall followed by a whisper of air. A hiss. Auto-defense system, she murmured, reacting to us. Because it's been down here for 1,000 years, and just now, realized it's not alone? Rude. The lights shifted color, from soft gold to pulsing red. I think it's angry, he added helpfully. Zakara raised her hand and pressed it to a panel. A sharp flash of light scanned her arm. The red flickered, then returned to gold. Well done, Your Excellency, Trent said, clapping exactly once. You've deactivated murder with grace and poise. Meanwhile, I once got locked in a public restroom by a paper towel dispenser. They continued onward, and after a few hundred paces, the tunnel opened into a chamber vast enough to house a small freighter, or an ego the size of her brother's. Rows of dormant machines lined the walls, their forms alien and spindly, like insects carved from starlight and steel. In the center stood a structure, a black obelisk floating inches above the floor, humming softly. Trent's mouth dropped open. Okay, see? This is what I'm talking about. Floating monoliths, mysterious energy hums, ominous lighting. This place has style. Zakara approached the obelisk, every step measured. This is the Heartstone. It's older than the Council, older than our bloodlines. Cool, what does it do? It holds memory, power, secrets. Does it hold instructions? Because my idea of unlocking ancient vampire tech usually involves more scrolls and fewer death rays. She raised a hand. The obelisk responded. Images flared across the chamber, flickering visions of a world on fire, wings of metal in the sky, vampire fleets retreating into silence. Trent blinked. Is that history? Zakara nodded slowly. The truth, unfiltered. Not what they teach now. More images. Her as a child, training with soldiers twice her size. Her brother arguing with the council. A vote, a betrayal, a signature written in blood not freely given. Trent sat down slowly. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, I've seen drama, but this is high-definition betrayal. The images faded, and then the obelisk spoke. Its voice was low and oddly polite for something probably capable of atomizing planets. Lineage confirmed, heir recognized, trial initiated. Trent stood up so fast he dropped his half-eaten protein bar. Wait, what? Now! The floor beneath them began to shift. Runes lit up. Zakara turned to him, completely calm. It's standard. For you, maybe. I usually fail trials that involve math, let alone mystical vampire judgment platforms. The room transformed, becoming an arena ringed with light. She stepped forward without hesitation. Stay here. If I die, run. Oh, good. I love instructions that start with, if I die. She smiled faintly, just barely. You talk too much. And yet somehow I survive. The trial had begun, and Trent, against all logic, was ready to cheer. Maybe even throw a dramatic towel if things got really intense. The arena's light coalesced into sharp columns around the platform, humming with ancient judgment energy that absolutely did not care for user feedback or ergonomic design. Zikra stood in the center, like she'd been summoned to court by history itself. Trent stood just outside the circle, gripping a cracked energy bar like it might be used as a diplomatic token. The air thickened. Symbols rotated above her head, glowing with a language long dead and twice as dramatic. A voice, not the obelisk this time, but older, heavier, spoke in tones that made Trent's spine consider early retirement. Zakara of Blood Ninth. You come not as princess, but as exile. Do you claim your inheritance? She didn't flinch. I do. Do you submit to the memory of your ancestors? I endure my ancestors. Let's not pretend they were a picnic. There was a pause as if the system needed a moment to recalibrate for sass. Then a pulse of light swept the room. A figure emerged, ghost-like, but solid enough to be ominous. It looked like her, only older, meaner, and with an expression that said, I judge you without blinking. Trent leaned toward the edge. Is that your mom? Zakara didn't answer. She was too busy squaring her shoulders and staring down centuries of royal disapproval. The ghost raised a hand, and with it, 3 more figures appeared. Each one a warrior, each one armed with various weapons, all of them with that distinct, you disappoint me, glare that spanned generations of her bloodline. Trial of memory, the voice intoned. Face those whose shadows you dare to follow. Trent whispered, this family reunion is intense. Zakara moved, fast, graceful, efficient. She didn't attack immediately, she studied, measured. The first ancestor lunged with a glaive crackling in the spectral plasma. She dodged, spun, and dropped the figure with a strike to the back of the neck. Trent clapped once, then thought better of it. Go Zakara. Sorry, I'll keep it down. The second challenger was slower but clever. He used tricks, holograms, decoys, snide remarks about her posture. She parried all of them, real and verbal, with a level of disdain that could peel paint. The third didn't fight. She just stood there, staring. Zakara hesitated. The voice rumbled. The mirror does not strike. It reflects. Trent tilted his head. Wait, is she fighting herself? The ghost Zakara raised her hand. Same stance, same expression, same hair, slightly better styled. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Zakara whispered, just loud enough for the chamber to hear, I am not you, and struck. The ghost dissolved into light, the chamber flickering around them like it had just exhaled. Trial passed, said the voice. Inheritance. Complicated. Trent made a noise somewhere between a cheer and a sneeze. Woo! Complicated! That's basically our entire brand. The light dimmed. The obelisk lowered itself. A panel opened at its base, revealing a sphere, silver, etched with swirling runes, pulsing softly. Zikra approached it and touched it without hesitation. What's that? Trent asked, trying to peek around her without accidentally stepping into a 1,000-year-old tripwire. She turned, eyes brighter, more focused than before. A mind core from the original line. It holds command codes, fleet keys, blood signatures, everything they thought was lost. Wait, fleet keys? He blinked. As in vampire battle fleets? As in spaceships with teeth kind of fleets? Yes. Do we get to fly one? Maybe. He pumped his fist. Best day ever. The chamber began to hum again. Not in the dramatic trial way, more like a system rebooting kind of way. Lights flickered green. Far above, gears shifted. Zakara looked up. They've activated a recall beacon. The fleet is waking. That's good, right? Trent asked. She stared at the pulsing sphere in her hand. For us? Maybe. For everyone else? She paused. Well, depends how much they like surprises. Trent grinned, slung his pack on, and offered her a half-broken protein stick. Then let's go start a surprise party. She didn't take the stick, but she didn't say no either. The moment they left the vault, the desert erupted into a chaotic ballet of heat and dust. Zakara's boots sank into the sand, but this time she moved with purpose, not desperation. The sky was smeared with the first blood-orange hues of dawn, a cruel irony she didn't bother to note aloud. Trent shuffled beside her, fiddling nervously with the small, glowing sphere cradled in her hands. So, activating ancient vampire fleet recall codes, is that like hitting the party now button? Or more like brace for impact? She shot him a look sharp enough to cut through the thickest atmosphere. Try not to lose it. That sphere is the key to more firepower than this entire desert has grains of sand. He swallowed. Right. Firepower. Got it. Note to self. Definitely don't turn it into a stress ball. The desert wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of ozone and old circuits. Somewhere beyond the horizon, mechanical wings stirred, gears grinding as dormant warships began to rouse from their slumber. Do you think the council knew this was coming? Trent asked, squinting at the far edge of the sky, where tiny specks blinked into existence, distant but unmistakably ships. Of course they did, Zakara said grimly. They always knew. That's why they tried to stop me. Trent glanced down at his boots, now half buried in sand. You think they'll send assassins? Or just angry emails? Assassins, she said without hesitation. He gave a nervous laugh. Figures. Nothing says welcome back like murder squads. Before she could respond, the hum of engines grew louder, a deep bass that vibrated through the sand. Shadows flickered, and in the distance the silhouettes of sleek skimmers approached, slicing the horizon like knives through fabric. Zakara's hand went to the dagger at her side. They're here. Trent scanned the landscape, eyes wide. Well, I guess this is where I prove how heroic I am. He reached into his pack and pulled out a crudely fashioned plasma pistol, which looked more like a repurposed water gun with flashing lights. Zakara couldn't help the small smile tugging at her lips. That won't stop them. True, he admitted, but it'll make a lot of noise and confuse them. Hopefully. The skimmers kicked up clouds of sand as they closed in, black-clad figures emerging, weapons trained. Voices crackled over comm channels, distorted and cold. Zakara of the Ninth Blood, a voice boomed. Surrender and stand down. Your crimes against the council will be dealt with. She stepped forward, voice steady. You serve a corrupt regime that fears truth and power. I stand for my people, for the future. One of the skimmer's pilots shouted, Orders are orders. Then your orders are wrong, she said, eyes flashing with a violet gleam that made the attackers hesitate. Trent, feeling emboldened, waved his plasma pistol wildly. Hey, over here, catch me if you can. The skimmers exchanged confused glances, unsure whether to laugh or shoot. Zakara seized the moment. With a fluid motion, she drew the dagger, the blade shimmering with ancient energy, and charged. The desert became a blur of motion and light. Plasma bolts slicing through the air, sand erupting in clouds, the clash of steel and technology. Trent ducked behind a dune, firing sporadically and shouting, You're doing great. I mean, you, not me. From above, the sky darkened as warships began to descend, casting enormous shadows over the battlefield. Their thrusters stirred hurricanes of sand, engines humming with awakened fury. Zakara glanced upward, determination hardening her features. The real fight is just beginning. Trent wiped sweat and grit from his brow, laughing breathlessly. Great. I was hoping to skip leg day. Together, amidst the chaos and swirling desert storms, the unlikely pair prepared to face an enemy that had hunted her from the stars, and to forge a future neither had dared to imagine. The warships thundered overhead, their colossal shadows sweeping across the desert like ancient gods returning to judge the world. Zakara stood on the ridge, her cloak whipping behind her in the fierce wind, eyes fixed on the horizon, where the last of the council's forces scrambled to regroup. The battle had been brutal, chaotic, a swirling tempest of plasma fire, shifting alliances, and some surprisingly effective improvised dance moves courtesy of Trent. Speaking of which, Trent was currently sprawled near a rock, attempting to look heroic but mostly resembling a slightly confused sand sculpture. He grinned at her, waving a scorched plasma pistol like a victory flag. I still say the run away and shout encouragement tactic was underappreciated. She allowed herself a faint smile. You survived mostly because you ran away well. Details, he said, sitting up and rubbing the back of his neck. Hey, I'm a strategist and morale officer. She stepped down beside him, gaze drifting toward the distant fleet now gathering beneath her command, their engines purring with the promise of renewal. The Heartstone rested secure in her satchel, its pulse steady, a beacon of power and heritage. Everything's different now, Trent mused. I mean, you're about to command a fleet of vampire warships, and I'm just me. Still can't fly one of those things, by the way. Zakara chuckled softly. You don't need to fly them. You need to keep me grounded. He raised an eyebrow. I'm more of a trip over the airlock kind of grounding, but I'll take it. She looked out over the desert, the endless dunes no longer a prison, but a stage for new beginnings. I came here thinking I was finished, exiled, broken, alone. Instead, I found something unexpected. A human willing to give you his blood and his bad jokes? That too. Her eyes met his, softer now. I found hope and partnership, even in the worst places. Trent grinned, standing and offering a hand. So, what's next? Galactic takeover? Tea with the Queen of Nebula 7? First we rebuild, reclaim what was lost, and rewrite the stories they told about us. He took her hand, steady and sure. Sounds like a plan, but next time, maybe less near-death experiences? She laughed, the sound like a rare melody in the quiet desert air. No promises. Above them, the stars blinked awake, ancient witnesses to an alliance forged in blood and sand. For the first time in centuries, Zakara felt the weight of her legacy, not as a burden, but as a mantle she was ready to wear. And Trent? Well, he was ready to follow her into whatever absurd, dangerous, and thrilling adventures lay ahead. Together, they stepped forward into the future, undaunted, unbroken, and surprisingly hopeful.